Well, I am thrilled to introduce to you this theme of TBC Kids Kingdom, where we will honor Christ and Christ alone as the King of Kings. I want to share this quote with you. This comes from Miss Christie, our kids ministry director. In Kids Kingdom, we celebrate the risen King, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. When we receive Christ by faith, we have the privilege of becoming his children and becoming a part of his kingdom. And so being a child of God knows no age. It doesn't stop at 6th grade. It continues forever. If you are a person who has faith in Jesus Christ, you are a child of God, brought into his family and are part of his kingdom. We really do want this to be what we celebrate, what we worship, what we praise, that this is the best news ever, that we are part of a kingdom who belongs to Jesus Christ. We've already talked about that life has been given in his name, and whoever has Jesus has life. Whoever does not have Jesus does not have life. And I'm excited about this theme for our kids ministry because, at least on Sunday morning, because of how central it is for every generation to be centered on Jesus. It's central for every generation to be centered on Jesus. Now, there is a practice that our kids ministry has, and it's called to whoosh when they're blessing someone, like their birthday. Kids, can you help me? Can you, on the count of 3, can you show your parents what it means to whoosh? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so if you serve in kids ministry at Tomball Bible Church on Sunday morning, Wednesday night, or in any other capacity, you serve with kids in Awana or Sunday morning, would you please stand to your feet? Stand up. All right. Look at this army of volunteers to love and invest in students, to point them to Jesus Christ, to help them hide God's word in their heart. This team has said yes to serve and invest and love, sometimes correct, and guide our kids to Christ. So, church, would you follow the example of your kids and would you whoosh them with me? Count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Whoosh. Thank you for your faithfulness to Christ. You may be seated. I'm excited about this because there's 3 shouts that we will shout with our kids. Jesus is the King of Kings. We belong to the King by faith, and we will train kids to live in the kingdom. Now, I said these are shouts. So kids, would you please stand up with me and shout these 3 lines? This is why I'm excited that TBC Kids Kingdom is our theme. First, Jesus is the King of Kings. Say that with me, kids. Ready? Jesus is the King of Kings. We belong to the King by faith. We train kids to live in his kingdom. We train kids to live in his kingdom. I'm so glad you guys, maybe this is my favorite Sundays of all. People are like, not looking like the frozen chosen, you know what I mean? I know there were people that did not turn around in the Kingdom Keeper song. I saw you as I was turning around. Y'all were like, what is happening here? Where is the pastor's long sleeve shirts? I told my wife, I said, I made this prediction. I said, I'm going to show up at church and I'm going to be asked over and over, oh, who's preaching today? Call me a prophet because the word was fulfilled. Please extend to me some grace for having some bare arms exposed this morning. We live in a kingdom. And Jesus Christ, he is our King. And we are called to honor him, to honor the King of Kings. This is our theme for us this morning. We're going to depart from the book of Judges. We'll be in the book of Psalms, Psalm 145, if you want to go ahead and turn and make your way there. I want to talk about this idea of honor. I recently served in jury duty. How many of you have had the great privilege to do your civic duty of being actually selected, go through the trial proceedings? That's one of the environments where honor is a really big deal. When the judge comes in, what do? All rise. And if you treat the judge or others with disrespect, you are held in what? Contempt. What a terrible word, isn't it? It's like, you may feel like you don't really do that, but the idea behind contempt is disrespect. And so, but I think the most powerful image about to bring someone honor is seeing an image like this. You know, if we came into this kind of chamber, this royal setting, and we saw one seated on the throne, what do you think we might do in that individual's presence? If we came before a monarch, a king, do you think you'd stand there looking like me? All bald and glorious? Or do you think that we would be like this? Honor is to treat someone beyond the line of consideration. Let me tell you about the line of consideration. On the line of consideration, this is the basics of how we treat one another. This is coming to a department store or something and seeing someone walk up that you've never seen in your life, and you are there at the door first, and to show consideration, what do? You open the door and pull it behind you as fast as possible, right? No, you open the door and you let them come in, because that's on the line of consideration. On the line of consideration is dignity, worth, value. It's what we are to extend to everyone that we meet. Everyone should be on the line of consideration. To honor someone is to interact with them and to treat them better than consideration. That you're thinking more of them. That you give them deference. That you bring them praise. I am called to honor my wife. That means the expectation before God, before her, is that I treat her better than just the level of consideration. Is she worth respect? Answer, yes, of course she is. But my calling is to honor her, to live with her in an understanding way. Now, a word that we are familiar with, we're not as familiar with the word contempt, but we are familiar with the word disrespect. I came across this definition that really kind of put me back on my heels. It was around the word contempt. And it was to believe and treat someone as beneath consideration. That means that even though everyone around us is worth respect and dignity and value, it means to treat them in a way that you actually view that they are not, that they are less than that. And that when we disrespect others, that is in fact what we are saying. That you are beneath my consideration as a human being. To honor them is to treat them better than they deserve. To disrespect them is to treat them with contempt, to treat them beneath what they deserve. You with me? How many of you in your homes is disrespect a big deal? Yeah, I'm seeing those hands. Disrespect at home is a big, big deal because we want to teach the values to our kids that everyone is worth dignity, honor, and respect, and that we should consider others as more significant than ourselves. And so this morning, we're going to be considering whether or not we honor the King of Kings or we disrespect the King of Kings. What would be some signs that we honor Christ as King? How do we honor Christ? Yes, ma'am. We read the Bible and we sing about Him. Have we done that this morning? Yeah, and we're going to do more of that in just a moment. How are ways that we disrespect the King of Kings? How do we disrespect Jesus? Ignore His commands. Yeah. How many of you have ever disobeyed your parents? Ever? How many of you have ever disobeyed your parents? Like, ever? Yes. I have. I have ignored the standard of behavior that was to happen in the Hinkle house. And when you ignore the authority's command, it is disrespect. When we're talking about Jesus, we are talking about the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. He is the one who is only deserving of our respect only all the time. At all times, in all places, in all situations, that is what Jesus is due because He's the King. And I want to take you into a passage because we're going to see firsthand an incredible text that's called a Psalm of David, a praise of David. And who was David in Israel? What role or office did he have? David was the what? The king. Did you know that in the ancient world, kings had songs sung about themselves? About the glory of their reign, about the glory of their name, about the glory of their majesty. Kings had songs sung about their greatness, that the people would honor them and revere them, respect them. And here we have King David, a man who could have demanded from the people, praise me. But instead, he writes a psalm of praise and honor to the Lord. So I'd like for you to look at me, to look at the passage. I'd like for you to look at the text with me. We're going to go through this text in 3 sections, and that's really going to form our outline for the morning. And so you'll discover the outline points as we go. And kids, in your worksheets, you should have these points that you can follow along as we go. The first section is the first 7 verses of Psalm 145. Are you all ready? You can follow along on the screen as well. A song of praise of David. I will extol you, my God and King, and bless your name forever and ever. Every day I will bless you and praise your name forever and ever. Great is the Lord and greatly to be praised, and His greatness is unsearchable. One generation shall commend your works to another, and shall declare your mighty acts. On the glorious splendor of your majesty and on your wondrous works, I will meditate. They shall speak of the might of your awesome deeds, and I will declare your greatness. They shall pour forth the fame of your abundant goodness and shall sing aloud of your righteousness. So here you have the King of Israel not writing a song about his own greatness. He is writing a song about the greatness of Yahweh, the Lord. the King of Kings. I want you to notice in the text, why did I just do that? Verse 4, one generation shall commend your works to another and shall declare your mighty acts. I'd like for you to underline or circle Psalm 145, verse 4. This is exactly why we are committed on a weekly, regular basis to point kids and orient kids towards Jesus. That one generation shall commend the Lord in his ways to the next. But folks, how many Sundays in a year are you here? This isn't to shame or guilt you, but just to take stock. If you hit 100%, how many weeks of the year are you here? 52, that's the answer there you're looking for, 52. So that means that Tomball Bible Church has 52 one-hour segments, at least on a Sunday, to build and invest in your kids. 52 hours out of all the hours in a given year. The burden of passing on the truths of God. Yes, we have a responsibility, but the burden falls to whom? Yeah, our families, our parents. To commend his mighty acts is what verse 4 says. What do you think David came to his mind about God's mighty acts? Maybe not the acts on the graphic, his actions, his mighty acts. What would have David thought about what God has done? Who did David defeat? Goliath. He was a giant, right? He was a huge enemy of God. And yet God gave David victory. And David saw firsthand that if he walked in faith, that God would move and do great things. What else might have been on David's mind about God's mighty acts for his people? What would David have known about? Really, anything from the Old Testament, y'all? Come on. The Exodus, the freedom of God's people out of slavery, out of Egypt, led by whom? Moses, right? The powerful delivery of God's people using 10 plagues to break down the rebellious and wicked heart of Pharaoh to ultimately let his people go. David writes this psalm of praise and he says, the king is worthy to be worshiped because of his mighty acts. It is worth your consideration to think about God's mighty acts in your own story. What are those moments? What are those instances that when you look over the course of the events of your life that you say, this was a mighty act of God in our lives, as a family, as a person? And you can add to the list every waking moment. But there are specific instances in our stories with God where he put his power, he put his majesty on display, leaving no doubt God is real. God is the one who reigns. God is the one who is worth our praise. And it matters to praise and honor the King for his mighty acts. Look at this next section. It goes from verse 8 through 16. 8 through 13. The Lord is gracious and merciful, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love. The Lord is good to all, and his mercy is over all that he has made. All your works shall give thanks to you, O Lord, and all your saints shall bless you. They shall speak of the glory of your kingdom and tell of your power, to make known to the children of man your mighty deeds and the glorious splendor of your kingdom. Your kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and your dominion endures throughout all generations. I'd like for you to circle or underline verse 13. Because in this section, the first section concentrated on what is the reason why we should honor the King of Kings. The first reason is for his mighty acts. The second reason that we're drawing from this text is from verse 13, his eternal reign. His eternal reign. How long is eternal? Forever. That's right. My life here on earth is going to have a start date and a date of transition. I had a start date, May 3rd in the year of our Lord, 1977. Now I'm living in this dash. And on the other side of the dash will be a date of transition. Well, because God has given eternal life to live forever, and life is in his Son. Whoever has the Son has life. Whoever does not have the Son of God does not have life. So all of my eggs are in the Jesus basket. The promise of God, the assurance of God is that he came and gave me life through his death on the cross. I trust in him. I rest in him, and my confidence is in him, not how I've lived in the dash. My confidence and my assurance is that on my day of transition, I get to be with God because of and only because of Jesus Christ. But in this dash is called the kingdom of God. Whereas God's child, I'm called to honor him with my life. Now it says in this section that his reign is forever. He has an eternal reign. On every human kingdom, there are always outside threats. In every human kingdom, there are always outside threats. For David, he had to secure the borders of his nation because there was always someone seeking to infiltrate, to come in and to take back land, to come in and to overthrow his authority on earth. We see this over and over and over and over in the Bible of kingdoms coming under threat because of warring people wanting power. We crave power. We crave authority. And David, as a king, had to constantly give attention to the national defense, sometimes going on the offensive, to go on the aggressive nature in order to secure their land. With our God, his reign is secure and safe for how long? Forever. Forever. There's an image that I have that comes from The Princess Bride, a great cinematic piece of history in our film industry. But there's a set of cliffs, there's cliffs in the movie. The cliffs are known as the cliffs of insanity. It's called insanity because it would be impossible to ascend, yet somehow our characters do so willingly by just doing this, and they can ascend the cliffs of insanity. But I think about the kingdom of God like those cliffs, and any threat, any act that would come against him are like the waves that just slap against the shore of the cliffs of insanity. The cliffs remain unmoved, unmoored. As we live between a start date and a date of transition, and we're living this life in the kingdom, aren't you under threat? Doesn't it seem like that there is oppression and angst and trial and trouble and spiritual warfare that is coming against you, coming against your spouse if you're married, coming against your kids, coming against your grandkids? Doesn't it seem like we are under assault? We're not just tortilla chips. We are people living within the kingdom of God, yet in this life there is allowed hardship, trouble, and a constant barrage of enemies. And it can sometimes move the people of God to a place of lost heart. In that other scene within the great cinematography work known as The Princess Bride, there's a pit, and the pit is called the pit of despair. You're never going out of this place. The pit of despair. How many Christians do you see would be defined as being under despair right now when you see the family coming unraveled in our society? How many feel in this room that we are losing the battle for the home? My guess is that it's pervasive. Now, there's a difference between having concern over what is happening in our culture, and it is yet another to come to a place of despair and resignation of we have lost. When I know the King of Kings reigns over the dash and nothing of any kind of changing definition of manhood, womanhood, of marriage can shake him. Do not be caught in despair. Your King has an eternal reign. Yes, we can be people of concern. Yes, we must train our kids for life in the kingdom in the armor of God. Yes, we as their parents and those who are responsible for building into this next generation, we too must be trained in the armor of God so that we can fight these spiritual battles knowing that our King has an eternal dominion. I love Psalm 145 because it describes our King as gracious and merciful and kind, yet he will not suffer the wicked forever. We honor the King of Kings for his mighty acts. We honor the King of Kings for his eternal reign. And now let's look at this next section. And you're going to see something kind of fun. Psalm 145, if you didn't know this, is an alphabet acrostic through the Hebrew alphabet. That means the letters of the Hebrew alphabet start each verse section. So this was a way for the people of God to memorize this. According to the Babylonian Talmud, this was recited by faithful Jews 3 times a day. And so they used their alphabet to remember this psalm. And this is how David wrote it. You're going to see in your text a section or a verse that's in brackets. You want to know why? They left out the letter N in the original manuscript. So later, when other copies were developed, they wrote in a line for the letter N. I don't know if David yawned in the moment that he missed their letter N, which is called Nun, and that's why that's in bracket. So let's start there. The Lord is faithful in all his words and kind in all his works. The Lord upholds all who are falling and raises up all who are bowed down. The eyes of all look to you and give them their food in due season. You open your hand. You satisfy the desire of every living thing. The Lord is righteous in all his ways and kind in all his works. The Lord is near to all who call on him, to all who call on him in truth. He fulfills the desire of those who fear him. He also hears their cry and saves them. The Lord preserves all who love him, but all the wicked he will destroy. My mouth will speak the praise of the Lord, and let all flesh bless his holy name forever and ever. I want you to notice one of the most repeated words in this entire psalm. It's a 3-letter word. Can you guess what the word is? The word is, begins with A, ends with O. All. So in God's kingdom, is God's kingdom just for grown-ups? Is God's kingdom just belong to old people? Who gets to be a part of God's kingdom? Everyone who believes in who? Yeah, in Jesus Christ, God's Son. Who gets to belong in God's kingdom? Everyone who believes in who? That's right. Jesus Christ, God's Son. Look at how God's word says that God interacts with everyone in his kingdom. It says this: he holds us all up. He raises us if we're bowed down. That means if we have come into his presence and we honor him by bowing down, he gives us the privilege of standing in his presence. Isn't that amazing? That means God, he allows us to be near to him. In fact, this is what this is going to say. He says he feeds us. He satisfies the desires of our hearts. It says that he is righteous in all his ways, and he's kind toward us. He's near to all who call on him. What is it called when God's people call on him? What do we do to call on him? What is that called? What is it? Prayer. But only old people can talk to God in prayer, right? You mean you can too? And according to God's word, what does it say? It says the Lord is near to all who call on him and to all who call on him in truth. Have you ever been around someone that you felt was really important? Like someone that you were like, oh my goodness. That happened to me when I was about 13 years old. I was in Oklahoma City visiting family, and we went to the gym to get swole. And so we were there, and I went with my cousins, and we were working on different machines. I was probably like hanging from the lat bar, you know. And then when we were done working out, we went into the locker room, and guess who walked in? Chuck Norris. I know, right? I know. First of all, he's much shorter than you would presume him to be. Second of all, I think he's like 80 now. He still is the most dangerous man on earth. He doesn't sleep, he waits. Right? But in that moment, for a 13-year-old kid to be in the presence, and for a moment, I was near to him. Now, Chuck Norris had a start date. He's living in this dash, and he too will face a date of transition. But we're talking about Yahweh. That's the Old Testament name for God. We're talking about the creator of all things. We're talking about the King of Kings revealed in the person of Jesus Christ, the Lord. And this passage says that when we call to him, he draws near to us. You see, the kingdom of God is an upside-down kingdom. You know what this was revealing to us about our God? Is while we are to honor him and to treat him above consideration, what does God himself do toward us? Does he keep us below the line of consideration and go, minions, do as I say? It says that as we call on him, the greatest one who could ever be gives us his attention, gives us his presence. He comes to us. My friends, the Lord honors his people. And this is revealed through his ways with his people. Why do we honor the King of Kings? Because of his mighty acts, because of his eternal reign, and because of his way with his people. His way is good and right and righteous, and his way is out of humility to give himself for us. Christ was put beneath his consideration. He was made sin for us. Everything that was unholy before God, God made his son to represent that, and he put him beneath his consideration and put him to death. But because Jesus is perfect, because Jesus is righteous, because Jesus is the only one who could pay that sacrifice, he raised him up high above consideration to the place that only is reserved for him, the place of highest honor, highest praise, highest glory. And kids and parents and students and adults, this is whom you're called to honor. We honor him because of his mighty acts. We honor him because of his eternal reign. And we honor him because of his ways with his people. Psalm 145 is replete, filled with his works for us. He looks over us. He listens to us. He draws near. He fulfills the desires of our hearts. He saves us. He preserves us beyond the dash into the date of transition and into eternal life. And all the wicked he will destroy. The whole psalm ends with David saying, "My mouth will speak the praise of the Lord. Let all flesh bless his holy name forever." That means there's going to be an opportunity for us to worship and honor our King beyond this life and in eternity with him, where we will worship not just in spirit and in truth, but face to face in the presence of Jesus our King. So our commitment is to bring him honor. Our challenge is that as we go about our day, that our words, our thoughts, our actions treat him above consideration. If we are prayerless, we're putting him in a place of disrespect. If we are not building into our lives the practice of worship and adoration, devotion and love, we are placing him beneath a place of consideration. But if we are making the rhythm of our lives the daily practice of pursuing him, praising him, honoring him, then we are placing him where he deserves. If we are not living for his glory, living for his name, then we are placing him beneath into a place of disrespect. So today is not just a call to our kids, it's a call to everyone to consider the truth. We must honor the King of Kings. I want to equip families for some discussion. I have 3 talking points that I'd like for you to have over the course of a meal or when you travel in the car. Whenever you have an opportunity to have a conversation, I want you to have conversation around 3 questions. The first question is what are God's mighty acts in your family? What are God's mighty acts in your family? And this is going to be all play for you to have with your family. What are God's mighty acts in your family? What are God's promises that last forever? This is about the security that we have of his eternal reign. What are God's promises that last forever? a great place to start would be to review Psalm 145. These are the promises that last forever. And thirdly, how can we honor God and each other? Because is that not our calling as God's people? That we would treat people not just treat them on the line of consideration, but that we would treat everyone with honor and respect, because that is how the Lord has treated us and how we treat Him. So how can we do that? How can we do that in our home? How can parents prove trustworthy to their own kids that they won't lose it even when there are moments of disrespect? Can your kids trust you when you're under stress and anxiety? Kids, do you trust and honor and respect your kids when they ask you to do even the simplest thing that sometimes feels like the world's hardest things? I don't want to pick up my toys. I hope these will be talking points for you. And then for everyone in the room, you have a Tomball Bible Church challenge. I want for all of us to develop for your home, apartment, house, wherever, create an alphabet acrostic of praise to the King of Kings. I'm going to give you some help. You can use the letters EX for X. Now, some of you will go Greek and hit it with the key. But I would love to know that you took time to think from A to Z phrases of praise to our King. Hang them in your home. Put them on your fridge. But take the step that King David took, who could have demanded the praise and the honor of the people for himself. He could have been a glory hog. But instead, he took the time and the attention to go Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, and so forth. Let's just practice. What might you put for the letter Q for praise to your King? We praise the King of Kings because He We're going to be here a long time. We got communion to get to. Never quit. All right, quits never. What's that? Woo! Quenches thirst. Y'all are like, okay, yes. There's going to be like 30 or 40 quenches thirsts, quiets, parentheses, never, or never. What did you say? Quits, never. Quiets us with His love. Quick to forgive. Oh. Do you know your assignment? An alphabet acrostic to the praise of your King, due next Sunday. Our kids' ministry is oriented around this principle to honor the King of Kings as a reflection of what it is to be for our lives. Thank you for entrusting your children to us. We care for them. It is our desire to provide a predictable and safe environment for them every week. An environment that is thoughtful towards them, their learning styles, and to meet them right where they are. It's our commitment to try to do the same with every aged kid in this place. We're grateful for entrusting us, your young ones, because that's how we view it. We view it as stewardship, and we want to be faithful. But we needed to let you know what is driving the heart behind Sunday mornings and Wednesday night and all the other expressions of kids ministry here at TBC.